So you can't talk modern America without talking terrorism. Now, what is terrorism? Terrorism is the use of violence and mass death to put forth a political point. Now, America has confronted the increase in international terrorism by formulating domestic and international policies aimed at stopping terrorism. So we're going to look into why several terrorist attacks occurred and what America has done about them. So we have suffered multiple terrorist attacks at home and abroad. So in 2000, there was an attack on a warship called the USS Cole. The USS Cole had been docking in a port in Yemen, and a bomb on a boat sent by the group Al Qaeda, the terrorist group, bombed the boat. Several soldiers died. Now, a lot of the terrorism coming out of the Middle East has to do with the fact that America had gotten involved in the Persian Gulf War in the 90s and continued to be a presence there. And also, America supports the country of Israel. Now, to Muslim extremists, a Jewish homeland in the Middle East that should be occupied by Arabic people really makes them frustrated. And they take their aggression out on the United States because we are seen as propping up a Jewish homeland and taking a side. Now, one of the major terrorist groups was a group called Al Qaeda, and their leader was Osama bin Laden. He's eventually going to get captured and killed. But kind of the way the manhunt starts for him is when he orchestrates the 2001 September 11th suicide attacks against the World Trade Center and other targets. It's early in the morning, it's a bright sunny day, and then people in New York see an airplane crash into the World Trade Center. Immediately, fire and smoke start to build up from the building, and America's kind of reeling because we hadn't seen anything like this happen before. Was this a mistake? Was this an intentional thing? And that question got solved when a second plane hit the other tower. Now, these two buildings are going to collapse. And it's not just these buildings that get hit on this day. The Pentagon, where the United States makes military decisions, is also attacked. Hundreds of people die there. And there's a fourth flight that is hijacked by terrorists linked to the Al Qaeda group, and it's known as Flight 93. Now, Flight 93 was headed for the White House. So George W. Bush, little did he know, could have been hit by one of these attacks. However, the people on Flight 93 had figured out what was happening earlier in the day, that three other planes had hit three targets. So the people on Flight 93 overwhelmed the terrorists and forced the one terrorist who was piloting the plane to crash it into the ground. So that one never reached its target. And then America was collectively shook. This was the deadliest cost on American soil since the Pearl Harbor attack that started World War II for America. And the terrorist attacks didn't stop there. In 2013, two brothers, also Muslim extremists, bombed the Boston Marathon. They killed 3 people, wounded hundreds, and dozens of people ended up with amputations. Now, these brothers plant the bombs and then get away. And a couple days later, they're tracked down and found in a small town. One of them dies in a shootout. One of them tries to run away, but eventually gets caught. Now, America has specific responses to these terrorist attacks because obviously America wants to be safe, but at what cost? So there's now heightened security at home, and this is the Patriot Act. So this is in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. This act allowed the government to start collecting internet search data because a lot of the terrorists had been in the United States and were using American resources and internet access to plan their attacks and communicate. So the government is now allowed to keep logs of everything you say or do on the internet. We also have problems with indefinite detention. Somebody suspected of terrorism could be held at facilities for as long as necessary to clear them or prove they were a terrorist. And this heightened tension and security at home kind of led to discrimination. A lot of people who were born in America but had Muslim sounding names or were known to be Muslim were being detained just because of how they looked. And this led to a lot of tension between the government and its population. America is also going to develop diplomatic and military initiatives. Now, America is going to declare a so called war on terror, but terrorism can happen anywhere. Terrorism is not a country. World War II, Germany was clearly a defined enemy. Japan was also the defined enemy. Terrorists can be anywhere. So America sent troops to where terrorism hotbeds were. That is why, to this day, America is so up in the Middle East business. Right? We still have soldiers over there trying to find terrorisms at their source. Now, a more visible thing on the home front for Americans was the formation of the Transportation Security Administration, or the TSA. So if you want to hop on an airplane and go anywhere, the TSA is supposed to protect you. Right? Because the guys who perpetrated 9/11, 19 of them went through airports, but they had managed to smuggle knives, box cutters, and other weapons in an effort to help them hijack the planes. So now when you go through a security gate at the airport, you got to take your shoes off, you got to go through an x-ray, they got to check everything you have. You can't have too much liquid of a sort because that liquid could be nitroglycerin for all they know. So sometimes these guys are effective and do fine stuff. Other times it's been shown that they miss a lot of stuff. So do all these measures from terrorism protect us from terrorism, or are they just a cap on our rights as Americans? And that debate is still up in the air to this day.